Hey there, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of In Black and White on Thursday, August 27th at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Forgive us for starting just a little bit late. Sorry, it's 7:05 now. We had technical difficulties before we got on, but we appreciate you being a little patient there with us, and we're excited to get started. I'm Rick Lockhart, your host, and joined by my lovely guest co-host for another week in a row hanging with me, Miss Kendra B. is here on the show with us again. Kendra, I know you've had a rough week. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Today was my first day back to school, so lots of excitement. But even after a whole day of being at school, the answer to all the questions are, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, yes, no one really knows, right?
No one knows. We're winging it.
So glad to have you back on the show to help us kind of target the conversation that we're having this evening. Big thank you to all of you all for joining us on In Black and White on YFNA News. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Hit that little subscribe button, share this on your platforms, like the video, and hit that little alarm button so that you can get alerts for when all of our shows go live. We have some great content that we're continuing to build, and we could really use your help with contributing to or participating in, helping us build that content. There are links for becoming a Patreon in the show links, I believe, below or above or wherever they are here. But make sure you either send your contribution by buying us a coffee or becoming a Patreon where you can donate monthly to helping us build our channel and our network. And a big thank you to all of our top Patreons who continue to contribute to building up this network. You guys got to forgive me. There's a lot to go over this evening, and this has been a long and rough week of things. And our topics tonight have really gotten me a bit on edge. So I'm going to apologize up front for any angry black man syndrome that you may see come out. I'm really not apologizing at all. But they're conversations. That's just conversations that we gotta have, right? You know what I mean? Kendra, where should we start?
I don't even know.
So I'll tell you what. Tonight we have the Republican National Convention with Trump giving his acceptance speech for being the party nominee or candidate for the Republican Party. This isn't a political show, but make sure that you do tune in for any of our political perspectives content. We're hoping to get that one back up and running, but I do have to take a moment to discuss some of the things that took place at the Republican National Convention to get us into our topic. I want to post the post. I think it's the second picture. And real quick before we do that, thanks to Miss Cynthia McDonald, who is running things behind the scenes again for us. Miss Cynthia McDonald, you can always catch on Mondays here on YFNA News on the 13% with her other co-host, Arthur Ward, as they talk about policies and politics that impact the Black community. Make sure that you check them out Mondays at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time here on YFNA News. But let's get started with I think it's the second picture that has a post that I posted on my page in regards to some things that were taking place at the Republican National Convention that just didn't really sit well with me. Okay. So I posted this and I said, allow me to clear something up. Republicans speaking tonight and or maybe just Trump supporters specifically are gaslighting racism. For that reason and a few others, they don't get my support. Kim Klachik said one thing that I listened to, and she wasn't speaking at the event. I just wanted to quote her for a second. She said one thing that I listened to that I actually paid attention to and took in from her ad that she posted, and that was Republicans don't visit the predominantly Black neighborhoods that are underfunded and run down, however, have the audacity to indicate what Black Americans need. Hashtag neither party truly has Black America's best interest at heart. Okay, so Nikki Haley is really what kind of It's where this came from. This is where the inspiration came from here. All right, guys. So Nikki Haley had the audacity, first off, to get up on stage and I'll quote, "America isn't racist." It's very dangerous to gaslight racism. And unfortunately, we seem to have this party, or maybe just an administration, that refuses to discuss racism. Right? I don't know, Kendra, have you ever heard the Republican Party? I don't know if have you been watching any of the convention?
Honestly, no, I can't. When I wake up in the morning, I will get on Facebook and get like tidbits here and there, but no, I can't. And one thing I say is that this isn't a political show, but the Republican Party doesn't have much, but they do have the audacity. They sure do. They
do. So I watched like night one and a little bit of night two, and I often get accused, and I have to put this out there for people that are watching, my friends and family or followers who tend to do this. And I want to clear something up. Okay, I need to get this off my chest here. So first and foremost, just because you see me post anything that's political, that's closely related to the Democratic Party, it's merely because the Democratic Party actually has values that are closer parallel to communities that I identify with. Okay? Now, you saw the hashtag in the post. Neither party has the best interest of Black Americans at heart. And they don't. Realistically, both parties are set up to support a white supremacist system, which is what our country is built on and continues to run off of. When you have a party like the Republican Party that refuses to acknowledge a few things for me that hits home. They refuse to accept transgendered lives, specifically Black transgendered lives. They refuse to accept same-gender marriages and relationships. Rather, their focus or push is for the wholesome family, if you will, mother, father, children, so on and so forth, because of their religious evangelical push. I personally can't support a party that pushes that agenda. And that's just me. That's just not the party that I closely identify with. I identify closer with the Democratic Party for that reason, right? They push, they have at least the values and an agenda of having the conversations around things that are important to me. Furthermore, I don't know if you all caught the interview with Senator Harris, VP pick and nominee or candidate, excuse me, Senator Harris and presidential candidate Joe Biden. They did an ABC interview with Robin Roberts and David Muir. And I was so moved by how many times you heard them say, we have to fix systemic racism. They said that in the interview. Not once have we heard the Republican Party admit that there is systemic racism. In fact, you will find that the administration gaslights racism. Now, what does gaslighting mean? Yo, Kendra, I heard this term and I'm like, we got to talk about gaslighting racism, right?
Right.
Are you familiar with gaslighting?
Yeah, it's when someone makes you feel crazy for being absolutely right.
Exactly. It's like me hitting you and saying, what are you talking about? I didn't hit you. Okay, that's gaslighting. Like, literally, I hit you and then make you feel crazy for the fact that you're delusional. I did not hit you. And it's dangerous to do that. And now we have groups of people who have bandwagoned on this theory that racism actually isn't real. Y'all, that's dangerous. That's dangerous because that continues to perpetuate or allow, racism to take place, specifically systemic racism. The Democratic Party and its candidates continually talk about we have to fix systemic racism. In fact, I was really pleased and moved to hear the governor and lieutenant governor of Wisconsin and their recent press conference right before we went on live here. Their commitment to changing legislation, excuse me, regarding systemic racism. And that's what they said. If you are supporting a party or an administration that does not believe systemic racism is real, then we have bigger issues here. And if you want to put someone into, thanks YFNA News for that. If you want to put someone into a leadership position that does not believe that systemic racism is real, then there's a concern. I personally, I have an issue with that. And Kendra, this is something that I've been dealing with for, throughout this week. But when Nikki Haley said America is not racist, like, I laughed out loud. I literally chuckled. So she goes on to talk about being the daughter of immigrant parents, right? And how her father taught at an HBCU, so on and so forth. It's important to understand, and I think some people get this confused. And it's moments like this, Kendra, that I really enjoy. I wish we had Cynthia McDonald here on screen, because she would go into this, right? The history, yes. And she's my history go-to for this. I'm sure she'll probably make sure it gets posted. But when you talk about race, right? First off, there is a difference between race and ethnicity.
Vocabulary lesson. Go ahead.
There is a difference between race and ethnicity. When Nikki Haley walked up to that platform, I 100% can assure you, I thought she was white. She had to tell me that her parents were Indian immigrants, right? Race, she has assimilated into and benefit from white culture. She could easily look white, and she looked white to me. Race is different than ethnicity. She appears white, although her ethnicity, she appears to be of a white race, but her ethnicity is that she is Indian. That's her background, where she comes from, where she descends from, right? But her race, that she can easily pass as a white person, and she benefits from white supremacy. To say that America isn't racist, but to look at its history, again, is gaslighting racism. Because we're still dealing with racism within our country, and our current administration, our leadership, refuses to even acknowledge it. He can't even say Black Lives Matter. So I had to get that out, Kendra. I don't know. I appreciate the fact that we have this platform to talk about this. I know that there may be some comments. If you're joining us and you're watching on Facebook, definitely switch over to YouTube, like the video on YouTube, and join in our conversation over there. You'll find the link in the show notes as well.
Well, didn't Nikki Haley also, didn't she changed her name, right? Like, her birth name is something I'm gonna not pronounce correctly. So if racism isn't a thing, then why change your name? Like, you think someone's gonna treat you differently, or oh, Nikki,
I didn't know she did that. I wasn't aware. I'm not. But again, I'm not surprised. Like, look, when she walked out there, Kendra, I thought she was another white woman getting ready to give us another speech on why Trump is great. And
it was news to me.
Right. She came with it. Well, my parents were Indian immigrants. And I'm like, ma'am, we have a whole nother conversation. America's not racist? Okay. All right. But again, that's, if you need an example of gaslighting racism, there it is. And it's dangerous because so many people adopt that mindset and are able to continue to perpetuate racism. There are people who I've come across in conversation with who talk about race baiting. I'll get into my feelings about that in a little bit in our next topic, but I want to make it clear that it's the people who engage in an idea or notion that race baiting is taking place that probably feel like racism isn't a thing. And here is the result of gaslighting racism. It's frustrating, guys. I cannot, as a man, and I've been using this example to hopefully help some people get this. I cannot, as a man, tell a woman in this patriarchal society that we live in that what she experiences as a marginalized individual or as part of a marginalized community is not real. I have no position to tell her that. And if I want to make a change in that, not quoting Michael Jackson by any means, but if I want to make a change, I definitely have to put aside what I think of the situation and my opinion of the situation, and listen to a woman tell me about her experiences in a marginalized system that's set up to keep that group oppressed. You cannot, as someone who sits in a benefited position when it comes to race, offer your opinion as if to say that the people that are being marginalized, that their experiences are invalid. How do you do that? Like, that makes no sense to me. But it's probably because I'm Black on the oppressed side of racism. It's not beneficial. It doesn't help us move the needle in any direction. Well, maybe backwards. When you tend to share your opinion as somebody who sits in the position of benefit from a white supremacist system and demean and discredit the experiences or invalidate the experiences of those who deal with that oppression. It's not how this works. It's not how this works. If some of y'all have questions or comments about that, I'll be checking over here for it. I just, for Nikki Haley to get up there and say that was so disheartening to me. But it also told me that this party, this administration, is in no shape able to lead a country for all Americans. Right now, they are playing to only a base, and that's scary. I hope y'all can get out and vote. Speaking of, I got my mail-in ballots the other day. Did you get yours yet?
No, I'm honestly terrified. I'm gonna stand in line. I'm so terrified that something's gonna happen.
I feel you. I'm gonna actually do the same thing. Yeah, I'm actually going to stand in line to vote. But I got my mail-in ballots the other day. When it came in, I was like, "Oh, this is nice. That's cute. I appreciate them for doing this." I'm going to stand in line though, and I'm going to find some people to make sure, masks and all, we are going to vote. And I said this on the last show, Kendra. I think you might remember. I'm still looking for people out there who are protest organizers or who know protest organizers. Get them in touch with me. I want to create a network of resources, because if you're out there able to organize protests, you should be out there able to get people to the polls to vote for the change that they're out there protesting for. So Absolutely. If you are someone who's organizing protests, if you know people who are organizing protests, we want the ones who got the big turnouts. No, any of them, actually. Just any of them. Get them in touch with me, connect them, whatever. But these people who are out there marching need to be right there at the polls, or at least turning in a mail-in ballot or absentee, whatever they got to do.
Also, any sort of event going on anywhere, ask, can I set up a voter registration table? Even if it's like a neighborhood cookout, pre-COVID, when we could do those things, ask, can I set up a voter registration table? When my school, usually we would be traveling from school to school to go to professional development, but asking, hey, I'm going to be at the school, can I set up a voter registration table? And they usually don't say no. No one's ever told me no. Sometimes I just do it, honestly. But anything. And then I want to reach out to history teachers who teach seniors who are 18 years old. I think it should be a grade. I think you should have mandatory. You have to at least register to vote, and it's a grade. Not telling you have to vote, but you should. But at least register. We're working on it.
My thing is this. I appreciate the registration, because that's the first step in the process. Right. And I tip my hat off to the beautiful ladies and wonderful ladies of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, which, for those of you that are watching, it will always be a thing as long as there's a blue and white takeover in black and white. Get used to it. However, I salute the ladies of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and all the Divine Nine organizations. But I know that it's one of the programs for Zeta Phi Beta's voter registration. Right. And it's always been, ever since I've crossed. And I always thought that was so dope that, that was one of the programs that they have out there in the forefront for elections and making sure that people are able to vote. But it also is going to take us to step up and vote. Shout out to Senator Harris, though, VP candidate Harris, for highlighting the D9 organization in her speech. I'm gonna keep saying it, because the historically Black Greek-led organizations, they are rallying to get people to the polls and get people voting. So Trump supporters, you might be at a loss. I don't know.
I
Just
know.
might be at a
Because
loss.
D9's ready.
Although
They are
there was a D9 representative that spoke at the Republican conference. I refuse to discuss it in public of who it was. So anyway, but I do want to highlight he's family to us, Kendra, unfortunately. Exactly. So I do want to highlight something though as we're talking about voting. I think that it's important to note. And I know that on the 13%, both Cynthia and Arthur have been discussing voting down ballot. You know, I here's the thing. You know, participating in the voting process is important. We're putting a lot of onus on the presidential election, and rightfully so. Right? We have this guy in office he's not a leader. He's not a leader, especially because he can't even discuss or even mention systemic racism. However, the thing is, voting down ballot is important to note, specifically Democratic down ballot. Because I personally, there were two things, Kendra, I wanted to happen. All right, there were two things I wanted to happen. The first thing was I wanted Pete Buttigieg to be able to get on stage with Trump and come out with all the gay colloquialisms to battle him in a debate. I wanted to see that. It was going to be amusing to me. Like, I think Trump would not know how to respond to, anything that he could do that would be the gayest thing to just get on Trump's nerves, and even Pence. Like, that's what I wanted. I did. It would have been comical, but Pete didn't make it. So sorry, Pete. You had my vote. However, I do want to see, and we can still make this happen. We have 4 seats in the Senate to flip. Get a Democratic Congress. You don't want Trump in office? We get it. We don't want Trump in office. But I guarantee you, if we had a Democratic Congress, things would be a little different. At least we'll have a Congress that's willing to step forth and talk about systemic racism, although our administration can't. That's all I'm going to say about that. So you don't want to vote for the presidential election? That's your business. Your voting is your opinion and how you want to cast your opinion. But I definitely urge people that the congressional election is probably a little bit more of a need than the presidential election. And having said that, Mitch McConnell is up. His seat's up, just so y'all know. Yeah, he's up. I think Wisconsin has a Republican senator that's up too.
And Lindsey Graham.
And Lindsey, down there. Yeah, Lindsey's up.
South Carolina, hello.
Just going to throw that out there. That's 3 of them. We'll figure out the 4th. But we got to November. Yo, flip the Senate. Absolutely. Because y'all want to see Trump go ape shit? Give him a Democratic Congress.
All right. Surround them with Democrats. And local elections. I said it on the show last week too. It drives me crazy when I post my cute little I voted selfie and someone's like, there was an election today, and I'm like, oh yes, there was.
Cringe. Yes. Yeah. Y'all, just if you're out here protesting, right? You're out here wanting to see this change. Get to the ballots and vote for that change that you want to see. And I can guarantee you that the Republican Party right now is not the benefit for the systemic racism changes that we need. They're just not. They're not. They can't even admit that systemic racism is a problem in our country. I don't know. I don't understand how you expect Republicans to change that if they can't even admit it. And that's the scary thing when it comes to racism. But again, I'll say it all day long. Because of how our system, the white supremacist system, is set up in our country, neither the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party right now has the best interest at heart of Black Americans. We can push for that change and work on that change. But if you have an administration that runs on a platform that can't even acknowledge systemic racism, then I don't understand where you think change is going to happen. I don't. So 2 days ago, was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday that we had the Jason Blake incident.
I think so.
I don't know what he's doing either. That's a Benjamin Button type deal. So, excuse me. Jason Blake. Kendra, are you able to tell the story before we get into it? Because I need to get my life together here. You had a great post, and I think we can probably start there. Or maybe we can talk about the situation and then share your post.
I'll let you talk about the situation. My post, well, situation then post. Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay, so Jacob, did I say Jason earlier? Jacob Blake was, we don't have all of the information, of course, of the story. Jacob Blake, there was a video of a police officer who discharged his weapon, firing at Jacob Blake at point blank range in his back while he was trying to get away from police officers and enter into his vehicle. And as the story continues to develop, there are more details that come out surrounding the situation that took place. There have been massive protests, rioting, looting. I don't even know if there was looting in Kenosha, but there was definitely rioting and protesting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where the incident took place. And it's sparked a bit of discussion. The video surfaced, I believe, Tuesday, and it's kind of been going viral ever since. We will not show you the video on here. There's no need to. The video is literally everywhere, and no one needs that trauma of seeing that again. I know I don't. In fact, when I saw it, I immediately said I shouldn't have watched that. I should not have watched that. It was difficult to watch for a myriad of reasons. And I'm going to get into some of those reasons with you here, but I want to bring up Cynthia Kendra's post that she posted on her page to kind of share some insight about the situation. Now, there's of course always talk about defunding the police. We'll kind of get into that in a minute. But Kendra, did you want to take this post?
Sure. So I posted. Every time an innocent life is taken by a police officer, I see people jumping to prove that the victim was guilty. There's dirt. And then yells. Cops aren't supposed to kill guilty people either. So what I've seen is, anytime an innocent black life is taken, we get their entire police record, everything that they've ever done wrong since the second they were born. But they're not executioners. Like, even if they're guilty, that's not their job. That's not their job. And I guess people find, well, they got a speeding ticket 2 months ago, so they were a criminal, and then that completely justifies everything. So, major gaslighting.
So let's start with the criminal history. For those of you that want to do a little research, you can look up. I'll get to that in a second. So this video, when I saw it, there's a few things that stood out to me. And I want to get out of the way all of the obviouslies first. So we can get past the obviouslies. Because so many of you have the, well, this shouldn't have happened and that shouldn't have happened. And let's get past that for a second, okay? Obviously, yes, he should not have disobeyed the commands of police officers. Obviously, yes. Yes, he should have stayed in plain view of the police officers. Yes. Yes, he should not have reached into his vehicle. Yes. Obviously. All right. Are we good now? Did I get all of them? Is that yeah?
I think yeah, the major ones, yeah.
Should be. The major ones, right. Okay. Let me explain something to you all so that we can make racism a little bit clearer. Okay? When I watched this video, what resonated with me is the term depraved indifference to Jacob's life. When you watch the video of the officer with George Floyd, and you saw the officer with his knee on George Floyd's neck, as heinous as that was, I'll give you that The officer in his mind was attempting to some shape, form, or fashion restrain George Floyd, which he took it too far and ended up murdering him. Okay? This officer, and I'm even going to give you we'll remove 7 shots from this because, of course, officers in the heat of situation, you don't really know how many times you actually fire your weapon. I'll take that out. I will excuse that as well. I'll excuse that for this example, for this engagement, this conversation piece here. Even if that's the case, you as an individual grabbed his shirt, realized that didn't work, and the only thing you had left at your disposal to restrain this person was to fire your weapon, was to discharge your weapon into this man's back, not caring if he lives or dies. That's what I saw. That's what depraved indifference to Jacob's life, what resonated with me. You didn't care. You did not care if this man lived or dies. You didn't. And as an officer, exactly. We're going to get to that in a sec too. There's always the situations in which deadly force is able to be used, and I find that people are resorting to that. That was the first thing. People are resorting to how to or when an officer is allowed to use deadly force. Okay, so many times we want to say, well, if Jacob Blake was another race, this wouldn't have happened, right? We say that a lot, and people are like, well, you can't really say that, or again, gaslighting. Well, we came across a video of a situation that could be very parallel to the Jacob Blake situation. And I want to share this video with you so that you can see for yourself the difference in how Black people, specifically Black men, are treated versus, or even Black women versus other races. Take a look at the video, and I must warn you that there is some graphic, violent language in this video.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Fuck that! Shoot me in front of my baby, you fucking pig! Fuck you, stupid fucking pig! I'm on private property! I was on private property! Your ID! For what? For what? You have no right! Bullshit! I took you bullshit! That was not true! I have my seatbelt on, you fucking lying pig!
We just put up the full screen here, but he said last night on Air Force One.
I fucking did on the ground!
Stop! You have no right! You're on private property!
She's making it worse.
And then you have another 16 in 2 weeks, and then as you know, we have $200 billion in payments, and after the $200 billion, we have
He's not black.
Fuck you, you stupid fucking bitch! There's my fucking license, you piece of shit! You wanna pull a gun on me in front of my fucking kid? I'll fucking kill you, fucking ass, you stupid fucking bitch!
Kids in the car.
Fuck you! Right side of your fucking ass! You fucking bitch!
And we're back. So Jacob Blake, although we don't know what Jacob Blake was saying, I can guarantee you what he wasn't doing was yelling at any of the 4 officers that at least I counted that were on scene, specifically the one or two that shot him. He didn't yell expletives at him and throw his ID on the ground and threaten to kill him, although they said that there's speculation that he had a knife and he grabbed his knife. At the end of the day, I can guarantee you this also, that if Jacob Blake were a white woman, no shots would have been fired. Wisconsin, I don't believe, has banned chokeholds. there are a couple of other things you probably could have done to reach in to make sure that he was pulled from his truck, other than shoot him in his back. This, ladies and gentlemen, call it implicit bias. It's racism. Black men and even black women are seen as threatening. They're threatening to situations. And when we talk about race baiting, here's my solution for those of you that think race baiting is a thing. Race baiting is only a thing because racism is real. I mean, I don't know. Like, to me, it just seems so simplistic. If you want to end race baiting, don't give media outlets something to use as race baiting. Like,
Exactly.
Am I off base here? Is this far fetched? Please let me know if I am, because I have a difficulty accepting when people talk about, well, race baiting is real or they're just race baiting. No, they're simply putting out there what happens. We see this narrative time and time again. Ahmaud Arbery, right, was gunned down by someone who used to be on the police force. And I'm not even bashing police officers, although we have this push to defund the police, which is reallocating funds for social services and communities that could use the financial resources that's being wasted on in police areas, groups, whatever. But we see time and time again that black people are vilified, right? We had to get Jacob's criminal history immediately after the shooting. Are you kidding? As you said, Kendra, in your post, police officers are not supposed to kill guilty people either. But while we're talking about guilty people, for those of you who have been following the story, amid the protests, there was a young man by the name of Kyle Rittenhouse. 17-year-old young man who decided to take it upon himself to grab an AR-15, take it to the protests, the rioters, as a vigilante militia group. And there's some video out that I've witnessed today. I haven't had a chance to really look through it, but that shows him with a group of vigilantes who have long guns, who are there for whatever reason they say to protect businesses. Kyle ends up shooting and killing 2 people and injuring a 3rd. Police officers walked right past Kyle
with a whole assault rifle in his hand.
Walked right past, drove right past, whatever. Kyle waved at them.
Oh my God, he waved.
He waved. He did some kind of hand signal, which people are still investigating if that meant something. My puppy Theodore had something to say about that too. The thing is, when you look at how racism exists in our country, black people and white people, black Americans and white Americans are not treated equally. They're not. And we can't seem to get around fixing this issue because we have people that don't want to talk about it. Kyle, and by all means, feel free to look this up. Kyle's criminal record goes back to 2016, I believe, with several, mostly misdemeanors, some drug paraphernalia charges, some, I believe there was a few not obeying the police charges, failure to obey traffic signal, disobeying officers. I mean, several that go all the way back to 2016. Drug paraphernalia, I think I might have mentioned that one too. The funny part about this, and I use the term funny loosely, is that the protests were happening in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Guess where Kyle lives? Kyle lives in Antioch, Illinois. Kyle was able to make it home from murdering 2 individuals and injuring a 3rd. He was able to make it back home to Antioch, Illinois, which is like 20 miles away. He indicated that he was there to defend businesses. Kyle is 17 with an AR-15 rifle, semi-automatic weapon, that his mom drove him to, with his rifle, to Kenosha so that he could be a part of that vigilante militia group in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and then he made it home where they came to further arrest him. I can't say it enough, guys. I can't say it enough. I can't. If you refuse to accept the fact that this is real, then we are never going to make it to a place of change for the better. We're not. And as much as I can appreciate the people that are out there protesting, it's not going to change until we start putting legislation around it.
Mhm.
And if we don't, then we're going to continue to repeat these cycles. Police reform is real and it's needed. It's needed. But I speculate what that looks like because, right, if in the event police have been taught about implicit bias already, police officers know they're being recorded, in essence, in some shape, form, or fashion. And Jacob Blake still ended up being shot 7 times and is now handcuffed to his bed in his hospital room, but he's paralyzed. So where's he going to go anyway?
Right.
So I want to get here to Eric's question. Eric asked, do you think the owners of the sports teams can put pressure on the president, or will they? So in regards to what Eric is referring to here, for those of you who may not follow sports for whatever reason, could be they, whatever community you identify with doesn't watch sports. Several NBA teams have gone on strike in a form of protest and refused to play in their games. There also was, I believe, striking that took place in the NFL, in baseball, and in soccer. According to the president, he doesn't even watch basketball. He thinks basketball has low ratings. Eric, to answer your question, I'll circle back to this. If our administration can't even acknowledge that systemic racism takes place, then no. Not at all. And I think the important part about this is that this conversation is, where does that leave people who support him? Right? People who jump on the bandwagon as Trump supporters, that jump on the bandwagon of, well, I'm not racist because I support Trump. You have to look at that because you're literally supporting an administration that can't acknowledge that systemic racism takes place, which thus might mean that you don't think systemic racism takes place. Because if you thought racism in general took place, then you wouldn't support an administration that doesn't want to acknowledge it to change it. Got to do some deep digging there. And the National Hockey League as well. So several different sports teams are in the process of protesting. So I say all that to say, guys, for those of you that are watching and participating, again, please make sure that you like this video, share it. We got a couple of thumbs down already, so I guess we're not doing a great job to those people, but maybe because they can't fathom that systemic racism exists. I don't know.
If we have thumbs down, that means that we are doing a wonderful job.
We got three dislikes to this video. That's
beautiful.
Wow.
I love it.
Wow. But please make sure that you're liking this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this on your platforms to get people involved in the conversation. Kendra, I know that you had, because this is our week to cover white troublemaker questions, which we need more of as we continue to push for change.
All right.
Did you want to cover it today?
Sure. Well, Cynthia gave me homework that I needed to make it into like a website, and I didn't do the homework. Sorry, Cynthia. But I do have a white troublemakers question, and it's actually from someone that I know and I love. And so here we go. So this is an assistant director at a daycare. And the daycare that she is at, many of the teachers are Black women. And there apparently have been some concerns about the way that that these Black women speak, because they don't speak what they believe to be grammatically correct. And so every day these teachers will write a note home for the kids, like how the kids did or whatever. And a lot of times they write like they speak. And there's someone else who works in this daycare who is going back and correcting the notes and wants to have a conversation with them. So it's my mother who told me this whole story. So she calls me and she was like, I don't know what to do. And so we talked about AAVE and African American vernacular, and that it is a dialect and that it is not grammatically incorrect. However, especially we tie it with being uneducated because systemic racism exists. So so I was like, it doesn't mean, it's not that it's grammatically incorrect. You think that because, we had to talk about where that mindset came from. And so really her question is, so what do you do? Like, you have parents. To me, I don't think this should be a conversation with the teacher. This should be a conversation with the parents. Like, do you understand what this note says and what's the issue? And going back and fixing it, it's such a microaggression that I think that's insanely, I'll be offended. So, how does she talk to him? What does she do? I think she should address the parents and say, get over it. Nicely, though. But what does she do?
Yo, so this is a tough one for me because for me, I come from a background of a household that was very strict, like from my grandparents down, speaking the King's English, right? So being grammatically correct is it's my background, it's my history, it's what I've been taught. So I guess in the realm of being professional, I kind of understand that. So that's difficult for me. But I've said this transparently before, and I'll continue to say this as I continue to do anti-racism work. I'm amazed at how often I can uncover my contribution to white supremacy as a Black man, because of my upbringing and the society that I grew up in, right? The society that I grew up in was geared towards white supremacy. So I have all of these nuanced behaviors that contribute to white supremacy. And this is one of them, right? Speaking the King's English, the dialect and grammar that comes from England itself, right? The English language, and akin to, I think it's Northeastern or maybe just Eastern, East Coast, middle-aged male, I think is the standard for that particular dialect, that grammatical correctness. I'm not sure where that standard is, right? But that's the what I grew up in, or exposed to and pushed all throughout my formative years. In fact, when you mentioned AAVE, I had to look it up to say, oh, that's a thing. Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. Our standards always have been, in regards to what we know as I'll continue to reference the King's English. I think what I would do, maybe get the parents involved and kind of do just one of those parental meetings. How is everything going? How do you feel about the services that you receive from the school? How do you feel about the communication that you receive from the school? Right? To get the parents' input. And if the parents don't seem to have a problem with the way communication is being issued or administered to them, then it doesn't need to be fixed. But you're right. It's a conversation to have with the director about microaggression, right? Because that's a blatant microaggression. Like, you're going behind Black teachers' backs as a white, educated, well-spoken person, articulate person that to correct their grammar. That's such a microaggression. And doing it behind their backs, like the teachers don't even know. I assume, right? They don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah. There's a couple of things there. So definitely a conversation with the director in regards to microaggressions, because I venture to guess she has no idea what microaggressions are. But but who as a person would want, someone, I mean, well, let me say this. I personally don't mind if someone corrects my grammar, as long as I know, hey, a couple of things I wanted to correct, and then showing that to me so that I know for myself how to get better, versus you just continuously doing it to make me feel like I'm stupid. Like, that's unacceptable. that's poor leadership. But I also think that it's important to get the parents involved too. If the parents are are able to understand the communication, if they're experienced with AAVE, right, and they don't see a need to make any changes, then so be it.
All
And
right.
now she started this, and now she can't go back. So communication starts coming home differently. People are gonna be like, well, what's going on?
Well, I mean, you know me, I told her, I was like, I can come in and talk to her. Like, I don't mind doing it. And I learned about AAVE from this thing that I do. It's called BARWE, Building Anti-Racist White Educators. And they do like a newsletter every month with discussion questions. You're supposed to do it with a group, which it's hard to do, during COVID. But that's where I learned about it. And I was like, wow, yeah. And I mean, I've had to undo my thinking. I'm a whole teacher, so I will correct grammar in a second. But now I'm like, oh, that's not.
Well, wait, what is that again? What group is that?
BARWE, BARWE, Building Anti-Racist White Educators.
Building Anti-Racist White Educators.
Yes, and it is amazing. It is such a wonderful resource.
Are they a national group?
Yes, they are. I think they came out of Philly, and they are wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
I like that. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I would. I've told you this before, my absolute dream job is to go from school district to school district and do anti-racism and anti-bias training. And so of course, if there's something already out there, I'm not going to recreate the wheel or whatever the saying is. And so, but like when I talk to people about doing it, they're like, yeah, we'll see who wants to sign up. And I'm like, no, this needs to be mandatory, because when you put this out there for people to sign up for, the people who sign up for, who are interested in it, aren't the people that need it. They're not the gaslighters. And so I think that real anti-bias, I don't even like saying bias, anti-racism training should be mandatory. Legislation. I'm working on it.
I mean, listen, that's what's going to get people in office that are going to change. I'm going to run for office. Mrs. Yoga Doc, not a lot of black folk have learned to code switch, quote unquote. Code switching is another conversation for another show. Mm-hmm. But for those of you that are watching who don't know what code switching is, I'll tell you what it is in a brief summation. It's a survival tactic for Black Americans. That's what that is. Arthur Ward says, Black people cannot fix racism. And I've been saying that since we started in Black and White, and I will continue to say it. Please understand that white supremacy and racism, if you understand the history of it, you understand that white Americans created the system of race, thus creating racism to keep white supremacy or white Americans in a superior position, and other groups, specifically blacks and people of color and indigenous people as well, and even women, inferior to white cisgender hetero males,
right?
Which has kind of bled into white supremacy being the white race and every other race being inferior to the white race, hence why we now have a white supremacist system. So therefore, Black people cannot fix racism. Hispanic people can't fix racism. Indigenous American people cannot fix racism. Racism has to be fixed from white people. White people created it. And I'll tell you as an example, for those of you who haven't heard me say it yet on this show, Black folks have been trying to fix racism for over 400 years. Generation after generation, Black people have tried to do something to fix racism. There's nothing that you can come up with in your mind that Black people have not tried already. We've done it all. So racism can't be fixed by Black people. People who are oppressed or marginalized shouldn't bear the responsibility and cannot bear the responsibility of changing the behavior and the systems of the oppressor. Excuse me. They can't. That's not how this works. Question is, do you think that any legislation really cares enough to change things? I don't. I really don't think they care enough to sacrifice their position to fix things. I will answer your question by saying the hashtag that I put in my post that I read earlier. As long as we have this bipartisan system, neither of these parties have America's best interest at heart. And until we have a party that is keenly aware and in touch with the substantiation of what Black Americans need to be a thriving contribution to this country. None of the legislation, I won't say none of the legislation, but we're going to have a very difficult time moving the needle to a place that is really going to be beneficial for Black Americans. That's only my thought. I don't know, Kendra, if you have anything else to add there.
I like YFNA News was talking about that the problem is that there is no enforcement. When it comes, so, you know, I advocate for public education, and sometimes I see legislation. I'm like, wow, this is great. And it's literally been in legislation for years, but there's like 15,000 different waivers, and then no one actually follows this legislation. So that enforcing is yes. And then whoever said, Arthur said that Black people cannot fix racism. That's something I was talking about with a friend, how you said Black people have been trying to fix racism for 400 years. And Black people have been saying the same things for 400 years, but when a white person says it, everyone's like, oh my gosh, like it's so fresh and new and they're so woke. And that's he was telling me that's how frustrating. He's like, we've been saying this for years, but then a white girl says it and everyone's like, wow, what an epiphany. You know, so how frustrating it is.
So Justin asked the question, what do Black Americans need? Justin, we'll have to talk offline about that because there's so much there, and I believe that we have to get wrapped up. So a big thank you to all of you all who have watched this. Please share this on your platforms, your social media platforms. Get people involved, man. Get people involved in this conversation. If you gaslight racism, then you're part of the problem. Have the conversations about racism. For those of you that have to get uncomfortable with it, get uncomfortable with it, whatever needs to take place. But I strongly urge you not to support an administration or any leadership that can't get behind the reality of racism and instead gaslights racism or tells you that racism is not real. Thank you to our top patrons. We continue to be a great network because of you. And if you want to get involved with becoming a Patreon or just simply buy us a coffee to help us with the content building and network building, all of the links are in the notes as well. Huge thank you to Miss Cynthia McDonald for all of your work behind the scenes. Always appreciate you. Check out Cynthia McDonald and Arthur Ward on the 13% every Monday night here on YFNA News at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time. To my host, Ethan, my brother, sending you best wishes and wonderful thoughts as well. Can't wait to have you back. But in the meantime, Miss Kendra B has been filling in, and a big thank you to Kendra B, my soror, for joining me on this conversation. Thank you all again for watching. And remember, as long as there is racism to fight, Kendra, you want to finish that? Do you remember?
It'll always be in black and white.
Yes. All right, everyone. Good night.